Welcome back to another episode of the Coastal Feuds podcast. I'm your host, Braden Plord. Alongside me is Tyler Lombardi. Once again, we are a bit short-staffed this week, but the show must go on. So we're just going to dive right away into college football. This past weekend, the Heisman winner was announced. It was Travis Hunter over Ashton Jeanty in what was one of the most, I think, closest Heisman races based off of points in like the past, I forgot how long, like 20-ish years. But this is really kind of something I was expecting, just because Hunter had all the popularity, all the lights, all the cameras. Ginty, I think he played half his games on Fridays, so people really didn't get to see him play too often. It was really just plays off of Twitter or Instagram or wherever you would get those types of highlights from. So it's I think this is probably one of the biggest Heisman snubs in the past history, just because of how much his level of production was just unreal.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it was crazy because I saw so many people arguing against Gene C with the strength of schedule. And I, the one thing I was always saying was Colorado didn't have a good strength of schedule either. They played the bottom half Big 12 teams. They played probably like two or three more bowl eligible teams. And, Ashton Jeanty was every single Mountain West team was designed to go against him. And also, I don't think the Mountain West is a bad conference. There's a clear group of five to Power Five bias, and I think that's what's holding back the sport in general. That there's this huge bias that Boise State went 11-1, sorry, 12-1, with their only loss being to the number one team in the nation by 3 points, and they were only ranked at 9. If that's a Power Five team, they're ranked 4 or 5. And it's crazy to say that. And, Travis Hunter had an amazing season, only the second ever defensive player to win the Heisman. It was incredible how he was, top 10 in both in wide receiver and then a top five corner this year. Won the Blittenkoff, which I thought was also a robbery over Nick Nash, but he did have a tremendous season on both ends. I don't think that, any other year I would have said that Travis Hunter would have been the perfect Heisman. But this year, no, I think Ashton Jeanty, with what he did, breaking or could possibly be breaking Barry Sanders' record. I think it 100% should have been Ashton Jeanty.
I mean, and like you just said, Barry Sanders' record of, I believe it's 2,600 rushing yards in a season. That's something that no one even like could fathom that anyone would even come close to it. The fact that Barry got that in 11 games itself is amazing, and GT is 132 yards away. So if he just has one of his, it's insane to say, regular games and gets over 130 yards, I mean, he's going to do that. And like you said earlier, with the strength of schedule, Boise State was really lucky to play Oregon early because, just because otherwise that really would have impacted their record if they did play them later on in the season. And GT
With
had a great
recency
game.
bias, yep.
I mean, I think he had like 180 yards and like pair a couple touchdowns. So I mean, it wasn't
Three
like,
touchdowns, three touchdowns.
yeah, that's three touchdowns against one of the best defenses in the nation. So it's definitely not just like oh, he's doing all this against Mountain West teams, and he was also getting subbed out at like halftime in like the fourth quarter and blowouts. While you would see Travis Hunter stat pad and get a ton of stats, which I do really respect. Seeing him do that well on both sides of the ball, but I just hate to see JT get robbed of something like that.
Totally.
And so, it was a pretty, I guess, dead week in college football aside from one game. Navy versus Army this Saturday. Navy with a huge upset win against Army, 31-13. And Blake Norvath, Navy quarterback, his second 200-yard rushing game of the season, had a phenomenal game. I believe he also had over 130 passing yards as well. So that was something interesting to see us seeing a service academy have a little bit more success throwing the ball. And Bryson Daly, just not a good game, 3 interceptions. And Army's top offensive line just could not control the line of scrimmage. Navy toying with them with their stunts, twists, going in between gaps. They just averaging, I think it was 2.9 yards a carry. So just not a great showing from Army.
Yeah, and Navy did everything that they needed to win this game. They know that Army is somewhat comfortable with throwing the ball. Bryson Daly on the year had, I believe, 900 passing yards. They know that Army isn't afraid to throw the ball, so they just shut down the run as early as possible. This game every year has always been decided by the run game. So by forcing Army to throw the ball, which they knew Army were comfortable to do, they sort of forced Bryson Daly into those errors. Bryson Daly attempted 16 passes. That's some of the highest the game's ever seen. But Navy won it by playing their style of football, whereas they forced Army to play a style of football that they don't excel at. Nate, you said Army did only have 2.9 yards per carry. Navy had 6 yards per carry. Blake Horvath especially had 8 yards per carry on 25 carries. It was really difficult to stop. Lots of different sets and formations that they used. Get him the ball in different. Obviously, it's the quarterback. He always has the ball, but to get him through different gaps, get him through different reads. It was everything that Navy needed to do perfectly. And also throwing the ball 4 for 9, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards. They had creative screen plays to, get the receivers the ball in open space. It was well worked by Navy to win the game.
Right, and with that, we'll move on right into the NFL, where this was many thought could be a Super Bowl pre-matchup, Lions versus Bills, and this game did not disappoint. Both teams going, I think they combined for right around 90 points. Jared Goff throwing for almost 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, and still losing. That's just something insane with no interceptions either. And Josh Allen, once again, going over 360 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, along with 2 rushing touchdowns. This was just a really high scoring affair and something really fun to watch.
Yeah, and one thing that I really took away from this game was Jared Goff really silenced the haters. A lot of people said he's not a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. He's a game manager for Detroit. He had that 5 interception game earlier in the year, and putting up 5 touchdowns and 500 yards against Buffalo is no like normal feat. It's extraordinary. It's special. There's not a lot of people that do it. Detroit couldn't get it done on the ground. Demont averaged less than 1 yard per carry. Jimmy Gibbs averaged less than 4 yards per carry. And they had to get it done through the air. And they were producing. They got Amon Ra the ball. They got Sam Laporta the ball. They got JMO the ball. They were spreading the rock. And they just couldn't get it done. Well, sorry, they could get it done. It was their defense that couldn't get it done, which is surprising. They've had a strong defense all year. But honestly, what I really take away from this is Josh Allen's MVP case just got a whole lot stronger. 4 total touchdowns against a defense like Detroit is amazing. 350 yards and then 70 on the ground. And he was getting the ball to everybody that needed the ball. James Cook also had a great game. Buffalo's firing on all cylinders. They have all the momentum heading in towards the playoffs right now. It's the offense is going absolutely crazy. They haven't scored less than 30 points since they played the Jets back in week 6. That is crazy to think about. It's looking great for Buffalo fans.
Yeah, and something that may not be looking good for another fan base, the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes going down with an ankle injury late in the fourth quarter against the Browns. He's considered week to week. The MRI did come back clean. There is nothing broken, but Mahomes did say that it was really sore. So this could really impact the Chiefs because they haven't really had a really strong year. It's one it almost reminds you of that the year the Steelers were undefeated through like 10, 12 weeks, and then they lost in the first round. It's one of those teams that, the record isn't really showing all the success that they've actually had, not getting really lucky in these close games. And now it's going to be if Mahomes is out for this next week, it's going to be Carson Wentz leading them against the Texans, I believe. And so depending on if Mahomes is out and how long it will be, I'll be really interested to see how the Chiefs are going to bounce back from this. I mean, their defense is now known to, I guess, carry them throughout games where a couple years ago it was the opposite side of the story, where it was the offense having to score 30, 40 points a game to try and stay afloat against another team because their defense was just inconsistent. So I am interested to see, I guess, the extent and the impact that this injury is going to have on Mahomes and the Chiefs.
They are 13-1. They don't really need Patrick Mahomes to finish out the regular season. They already clinched the division. So that being said, I think it's smartest if they just keep him on the bench these last few weeks. Keep him healthy for the playoffs. They don't exactly need him. And I think the home Carson Wentz starting a few games will kind of show how good the team actually is. Because if they can't win games without Patrick Mahomes, it clearly means that they don't have the talent around Patrick Mahomes to do it in the playoffs against the elite level defenses and the elite offenses, like like the Bills were showing. I don't know how the Chiefs are going to handle a team like the Bills in the playoffs when they don't have the players around Patrick Mahomes to win. And despite this being a down year, it's not that bad of a year for Patrick Mahomes. He's very high in interceptions, still has 3,000 yards and 20 touchdowns, and is doing incredibly good well in late game. They have won, I think, around 10 one-score games this year, and it is a good team. But as you were saying, like similar to the Steelers, the record isn't reflecting how well they've been playing. It shows how well they close out games, but it doesn't show how well they're doing in the first, second, and third quarters, where they're struggling to put up points and their defense is really having to shut down the opposition.
Yeah, I think another thing is just the Chiefs have also kind of been hit with the injury bug lately. We know Isaiah Pacheco broke his fibula or tibula, I believe, early on into the season, so that hurt. Hollywood Brown injured his shoulder. He had to get surgery in preseason, so he hasn't been there. So, and then Rashee Rice also tearing his ACL. So your top receiver is being thrusted in. Xavier Worthy, the 170-pound rookie. I mean, that's just not something that you're exactly going to be prepared for. And when you're really looking for a number one receiver, Xavier Worthy, he did have a good day today, but he's not that top receiver like Rashee Rice is. So it has been interesting to see, how the injury bug has affected them, along with the play of their tackles. Jawan Taylor signed this huge extension. A lot of people did think that it was a bit too much money, and it kind of has shown. He's getting a lot of penalties, a lot of false starts, and if they aren't false starts, it's awfully close and little, I guess, surprising that it's not. Then you're also having Wanye Morrison, struggling second, third year player. He hasn't been doing well. Kingswell Suamadia, the second round pick from this year, he's been thrown in the fire a couple times. Nothing's really happened. They've had to sign oh, I'm forgetting his name, but they had to sign a veteran tackle, DJ Humphreys. Now he's injured. He'll be out for a little bit. So it's just offensive line consistency has not been there as well, along with the playmakers around him, like you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
And so another game from, I guess, the slew of games was the Commanders beating the Saints by 1 point, 20-19. The Commanders were at 1 point up by 17, and the Commanders did storm back, scoring all their points in the second half, I believe, 7 points in the third, and then 12 points in the fourth, losing the game off of a missed 2 point conversion, I think it was. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep. Off a missed two-point conversion.
Yeah, so this does really bring up the question. Commander started off really hot, but as of late, they haven't been doing too good. So, Tyler, what are your thoughts on the Commanders' recent struggles?
I think it really shows the inexperience of Jaden Daniels. Not that he's playing poorly, it's just he's not winning the big games. Lost to the Steelers by one, lost to the Eagles by eight, and then a loss to the Cowboys, a really, not strong team this year. He's lost to the Ravens, and his wins are against not the greatest of teams. He's beat the Giants twice, he's beat the Bears, he's beat the Panthers, he's beat the Browns, he's beat the Cardinals, and he's beat the Bengals. But it's not the most impressive wins. And then a 1 point win against the Saints only because the Saints went for two. It shows, that the Washington Commanders aren't as, strong of a team as, everyone once thought. They are very well probably going to make the playoffs this year and do have a good chance to win that first round. But I don't think that they are as good as people are attributing them to. They are certainly in the future going to be an amazing team. You know, I know Terry's getting older, but he's still only 30. He's still got a few more years left in him. Jaden Daniels is only going to get better. He's an amazing option, and Brian Robinson pairs alongside him very well. I know they lost Eckler, and the loss of Eckler is going to be affecting them, but you know, a game against the Saints can't be going down to one score, especially when the Saints have nothing to play for and you have all to play for. And they still finished the season. They still have to play the Eagles in their final three games, the Cowboys that they lost to, and the Falcons, who I know the Falcons aren't exactly the greatest of teams at the moment, but the Falcons are still very much in the hunt to win their standing or in their to win the NFC South. It's not an easy end to the season for the Commanders at all, and I think it's really going to show if they are a playoff caliber team or just a pretender.
Yeah, I thought it's also really interesting. You talked about the Falcons. I think that they have the easiest schedule for the rest of the way. I think all the rest of their games are against teams below 500, and they are one. I think they're one win behind the Bucks for the NFC South. So, despite a lot of some of the struggles the Falcons have had, they are still very much in it to win the NFC South. And is Terry McLaurin really 30?
I believe he is. I'll have to double check that, but
Because I don't think he's that
he's
old.
29. He's 29.
Oh wow, that's man. I thought he was like 27 or something. That's weird. All right. And so now moving on to our next sport is going to be the NBA. And with the NBA Cup, the finals have been set. The Bucks against the Thunder. Giannis and Dame had a huge game in the quarterfinals to push their team on. Then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had another great second half to push his team past the Rockets. So it's going to be a little bit interesting. We know that the Bucks started off pretty slow to start the season, but now they're in the NBA Cup Finals. Kind of reminds me a bit of the Lakers last year. They were kind of struggling a little bit, but then in the Cup, they did really well, made it all the way to the finals. So, Tyler, do you have a game pick for this game, Bucks versus Thunder?
I do, and it's gonna be the Bucks. They started out 2-8, and then they went on an amazing win streak. What, 12-3 as of recent? They lost two games to the Celtics and Hawks recently, but in the cup, Damian Lillard and Giannis both had a great game against the Hawks to win. And the Hawks are a good team. The Hawks are a team that's beaten the Celtics, I believe. I believe they're also the team that ended the streak against the Cavs. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but
I think the Celtics ended the
yeah,
streak
but
on the Cavs.
I know the Hawks have beaten the Cavs as well. But Dame he's getting older and he's not producing at the level he should be, but he's still playing well. 25 against the Hawks, 28 against the Magic in the quarterfinals. You know, I think with this momentum that the Bucks have, I think they could win it. They have definitely more experience than the Thunder. They have an NBA champion in Giannis. They have Damian Lillard, who's 34, been in the playoffs multiple times, made deep runs before. And whereas the Thunder, all very young players, they got bounced last year as the one seed when many thought they shouldn't have been bounced and they should have won. I like the Thunder as a team. They look in very good for the future, obviously, very young, tons of talent, but I like the Bucks in this game due to their experience and the winning streak that they're on.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. I also have the Bucks winning the cup because Giannis and Damian Lillard are both getting hot at the right time. Both of them are averaging, I think, over 30 points a game, the NBA Cup, and they're both getting a lot of rebounds and a lot of assists. They're really helping their team out. I think the return of Chris Middleton also helped things a lot. He was kind of like the binding, kind of the mediator between the team. So Giannis and Dame, they're finding that chemistry now, and I do like their experience, and it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, there's not a whole lot of ways that you're going to stop a man and a player like him. So I also have the Bucks winning the NBA Cup. This, do you know when it is?
I do not know what it is. I don't.
Anyway, I have the Bucks winning the NBA Cup. So
This Tuesday. This Tuesday.
it's this Tuesday.
Yes.
All right. Did you watch any college basketball?
I have been watching some college basketball recently. In person for the Jimmy V Classic. Some very entertaining games there. Michigan getting upset by Arkansas. The SEC looks incredibly dangerous this year. They have almost half, I think more than half the teams in the SEC are ranked this year. It looks incredibly strong overall. Tennessee looked like a complete team. They look like they're ready to make a deep run. They've had the talent in years past, but this year especially, they look dangerous.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting watching them get a buzzer beater to beat Illinois, and then Rutgers also getting that half court shot from Harper to beat Seton Hall in the closing seconds too. So, you know, I don't think it's too often that you're going to see multiple buzzer beaters in college basketball in 1 week.
Yeah, Rutgers is one team that I've actually been disappointed by. They had a really rough start to the season. They played number 9 Alabama, number 20 A&M, then they went on to Ohio State and lost by 6. All of these close games, but they also have a loss against Kennesaw State. It's they're not really doing much with the talent they have. They have Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, and Dylan Harper's playing out of his mind, but Ace Bailey isn't exactly living up to what you'd expect out of him. Only, 18 points, still very strong, but he, I feel like Ace Bailey has been a lot more inconsistent than Dylan Harper's been. But Dylan Harper in general has just looked absolutely tremendous this year. And if Rutgers can keep it together once they get to the Big Ten portion of their season, and if they can make that tournament, don't be surprised if they make a run because they have the talent to. It's just right now, not everything's clicking, and they just need that little bit of extra time to make sure that everything's set in place and the team can gel and make that run.
All right. Aside from that, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No,
All right, awesome. Well, that's going to conclude another episode of the Coastal Feuds podcast. Once again, I am your host, Braden Plord. Alongside me is Tyler Lombardi. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment onto our channels on Instagram, Twitter, and this one on YouTube. So excited to talk to you guys again, and we'll see you next week.